Thank you for being here today and participating in the Fort Atkinson Chamber of Commerce Facebook Live Candidate Forum. For those who are watching, we will be talking first with the 3 unopposed candidates for City Council, followed by 3 candidates running for 2 seats on the Fort Atkinson School Board. Each candidate will have 2 minutes of introductory remarks. The timer will notify you of the time you have remaining. Then I will draw questions from those that have been submitted, and you will have 1 minute to respond. As there are several issues we hope to address, not every question must be answered by each candidate, but I will ask if you would like to add your comments or rebut those that have been made. Finally, we'll conclude with 1 minute each of closing remarks. So let's begin with candidate Mason Becker. Please introduce yourself and explain why you are running for City Council.
Sure. Thank you, Kory, and welcome to everybody watching online. Those of you who don't know me, my name's Mason Becker. Give you a quick mini bio. My wife Laura and I have been married for about 15 years. She works at Madison College here in Fort, and I work with my parents, Tom and Coral, with our area Subway restaurants here in Jefferson County. You've maybe even seen me behind the counter making a sandwich from time to time. I'm involved with my church, Bethany Lutheran, our area Lions Club. I just want to say now that I'm running for my 3rd term on City Council, I've had a chance to learn a lot over the last 4 years. I've gotten to serve on our Finance Committee, our Economic Development Commission, and I've been fortunate to be able to serve as City Council President for the past 2 years. I think we've been able to make a lot of strides over the past couple of years. We have a new hotel on our northwest side, which continues to grow. We have a redevelopment plan for the camera area that we're hopefully going to be able to put into place. But we do have some challenges too. A couple things I want to work on is make sure we maintain a varied degree of businesses in the community, including retail, and then also see if we can work together to address our rental housing shortage that we've recently learned of through the housing study. Just hoping to work with everybody over the next couple of years, and I want to add that I'm really glad that my fellow councilman, Paul Kotz, has decided to run again. I think he's going to bring a lot of leadership to the council once again, a lot of experience, and I'm also excited that my good friend Scherer has decided to run. I think he's going to bring some youth and enthusiasm, some new ideas. It'll be a little awkward for me not being the youngest person on the city council anymore, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I will say that I know all 5 of us won't agree on everything all the time, but I know we'll be able to work together to work towards some common sense solutions that'll apply for the common good of the entire city. So looking forward to discussing the issues, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mason. Councilman Paul Kotz, why are you running for City Council again?
I'll follow the same format, I guess, that Mason did, give you a little bit of a background on myself, and then also why I elected to try and run again for City Council. So I've been a city resident for just about 20 years. I raised my family here. All 3 kids went through high school here. And previous to my current role, I'm currently a Human Resources Director with Topcon Agriculture. Previous to that, I owned a business in Fort Atkinson for about 10 years. I was co-owner of 5-alarm fire and safety equipment, so I've lived and worked in the community most of the past 20 years. I'm actually active in the Rotary Club and have been for not quite 20 years, but close to it. This would be my 4th term in the City Council. I currently served 6 years. This would be the 4th term. I served as president for 2 years before Mason. We've had a nice format of kind of rotating that presidency to make sure many people serve in it and it doesn't become too entrenched. And I think that's been a good policy that we've had, or good practice. I guess it's not a formal policy. I think that the business issues facing our city, budget is always is a big challenge for us. So I think we have some priorities. I'd say roads are a priority, economic development is a priority, housing development is a priority. We're trying to see if we can craft city policies and practices that support all those kinds of things. I think we've made great strides over the past few years with roads, and we're working very hard at economic development and now most recently trying to take on more of an active role in kind of housing development, if you will. So I guess I just look forward to bringing my business experience to the City Council again. I've managed budgets larger than the cities, and Look forward to a chance to contribute again. I've found working with City Council very interesting how the city runs, and glad to be a part of it. So.
Thank you, Paul. Newcomer Chris Scherer, please introduce yourself and explain why you're running for City Council.
As you said, my name is Chris Scherer, and I am a lifelong resident of Fort Atkinson. This is actually my second attempt at running for City Council, and I'm looking forward to the next 2 years ahead of us. Over the past 4 years, I've had the opportunity to partake in the city's placemaking initiative, the Jefferson County Strategic Plan, and the City Comprehensive Plan update. I also sit on the Fort Atkinson Planning Commission, and I am an active member in the Chamber of Commerce, both as a board member and an ambassador. I believe that Fort is a unique city with the potential to build on its location, its natural surroundings, its history, its existing businesses, and its legacy of community. It is my hope that as a City Council member, I could utilize my knowledge from the many planning sessions that I have been part of to help direct the city according to our comprehensive plan as we address some of the opportunities and challenges that we will encounter. Fort Atkinson has afforded me the opportunity to learn and to build a successful business. It is more than just a place where I live, it is a place that I call home. I'm looking forward to giving back to the community that has helped me achieve so much, and I hope to have the support of the community as I seek a position on City Council.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll begin with the first question. These have been submitted by members of the Government Relations Committee as well as chamber members and some people in our community. So back to you, Mason. You mentioned this in your opening statements. The city has just completed a housing study which verified a shortage of multifamily housing in Fort Atkinson. How proactive are you willing to be to address this shortage?
I'm willing to be extremely proactive. Kory, this is kind of a personal issue for me. In our business, we have many people who aren't ready to buy a house yet, employees I deal with, and I've had employees literally in front of me in tears because they can't find an apartment they can afford to rent here in Fort Atkinson. I actually, about a year and a half ago, met a developer from out of state who actually did take a very serious look at Fort Atkinson. And looked at the WIDA program, what kind of options were there, and they did consider a property here in Fort Atkinson. At that time, things didn't quite work out. The criteria at WIDA, which is kind of the state's housing and development organization, changed. But they recently reached out to us again. They might be considering things again, taking another look at Fort Atkinson. I don't plan to just stop with one lead, so to speak. I'm hoping that now that the housing study's been completed and out there, that maybe some local developers will want to take a more serious look and step up to the plate.
Excellent. Follow-up question, Paul. What tools do we have or need to create for attracting developers?
Well, I think the recent work with the comprehensive plan has provided some support there. We have demographic data, we have financial data, income data, and things like that. We also want to show prevailing wages in the area so a developer can feel somewhat comfortable that their people can afford the housing if they build it. I think we want to provide all the kind of public information we can so they can make an educated decision, because we of course want them to be successful if they chose to do some building of housing in our community. So I'd say those are the main things. We also want to have more outreach, I think, and make sure that this information is readily available to people that are inquiring. But I think we also want to outreach to people, as Mason just mentioned, to try and reach out to people that might be interested and show them that Fort Atkinson is a good place to consider for any future development.
Excellent. Chris, did you have anything you wanted to add to that particular question?
I would just echo the sentiment of I don't think we're going to stop with just finding one developer, but hopefully finding the right fit for Fort Atkinson, and even better if we can find it within the community. I know when I encountered the apartment versus housing hunt, I ended up going for housing because apartments and rental property in general is hard to come by around here. So I hope that as a city we can figure out the means necessary to help bring in some developers.
Okay, thank you. Next question for Councilman Paul Kotz. The city has also just approved its comprehensive plan, which provides direction for future land use and development in Fort Atkinson. What are your ideas for helping the city grow?
Well, it's a number of things. I mean, we talked about multi-unit housing. Through my employer, we've also kind of recruited professional employees, and sometimes they too are not able to find the kind of housing they want here. So I think we need to approach it from all fronts as far as attracting businesses and making sure people have affordable housing. I mean, how nice to be able to work and live here. I don't know why someone would want to commute a half hour, an hour if they didn't have to, right? And so I think those are the kinds of things you hear. What is the Chambers? Live here, work here. I mean, perfect, right? I think that's a good theme for all of us. I think the comprehensive plan did a nice job of outlining like a thumbnail for growth and things for us to align with as we approach different city issues going forward. I don't think the plan should ever be, kind of cast in stone. I mean, 5 years from now, there might be changes that need to be made that we just couldn't forecast now. So I do think we have to use common sense when we approach anything that comes up and consider all alternatives. So.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
For Chris, given the news that Shopko is about to close, how could the city address the retail gaps in Fort Atkinson?
Yes, so Shopko closing just kind of compounds with the already vacant Kmart Plaza. Unfortunately, Shopko's closing had nothing to do with our community. That was the decision of higher ups at Shopko. How do we address the retail gap now? I think we're already actively doing that both from a city front, from a community front, from a chamber front. It's not an easy task to draw retail to any community right now, and even harder is the fact that we are going to be competing against every community that also lost a Shopko. That being said, the south side of Fort Atkinson has some great opportunities, and that is a great space that can be utilized still. I think it's just finding the right match for our city that doesn't compete too heavily with the Janesville or Madison market, something that's unique and good for Fort Atkinson.
Excellent. Would either of you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I just say I agree with a lot of what Chris said. I think the biggest thing we can do is have a public conversation about the topic. We have to be somewhat realistic. Most retailers nationally aren't expanding. They're either consolidating or contracting. So while I'm certainly going to try to see if we can bring, a major retailer in, I've actually personally reached out to quite a few already in this past week. I don't want to get people's expectations too high. And I realistically think that long-term retail growth here in Fort Atkinson is going to come from entrepreneurs who are already living and working in our community. I think that's where the future growth is going to be. So I'm hoping whatever the city council can do, we can work with those people. Maybe somebody has a dream. Hopefully they reach out to us and we find a way to make it happen.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, back to you, Mason. The comprehensive plan calls for the city to work with the chamber in the creation of a downtown business improvement district. What are the anticipated outcomes of such a collaboration?
The business improvement district, I mean, that could be very far-reaching. I know you and I have had some conversations in the past. I've talked with people from the JCEDC in the past. And I think what everybody's cognizant of is what we want our downtown to remain like. I think people in Fort Atkinson stated very adamantly in the placemaking initiative and throughout the comprehensive plan process that they want us to continue having a traditional downtown. And for me, that means retail and a mix of goods and services, some restaurants, taverns, so on. But I'm hoping long-term we can come up with a vision that works for the entire community and just work together to make that happen.
Okay. Mr. Kotz?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I think we need to always focus on. We need to make sure the downtown area is easily accessible, traffic. We need to make sure it's parking, adequate parking for businesses, and also want to make sure that the total environment is conducive to businesses, and I think we do have efforts moving in those ways currently. But I think we have to keep that in mind. A business wants to feel comfortable that their customers or potential customers have adequate places to park. And I think that's important, and also that the roads, easy in, easy out access. I think those are all important to businesses. So as the city progresses with things before us, I think we need to always keep those things in mind.
Thank you. Councilman Kotz, a lack of public transportation and daycare providers tend to be two hot-button issues in our area. How can the city work to address these community concerns?
Well, obviously it's private business, and the city doesn't get into private business, but we can do things to try and make things easy for those businesses for transportation and daycare providers. We can try and support their efforts, try and help them again with accessibility and things like that. Trying to align with the school district and other community services. But again, it's a private business, so I mean, I think we can try and make it easy for them to do business and try and support them and promote them, but it's not the kind of a thing that the city's going to take on and say, we're going to go ahead and open a daycare. It's just, it's not really in our charter, right? So public transportation, I mean, we do have a very nice service here, the cab service, which is already subsidized by tax dollars, which kind of amazing, really, that's available to people and how affordable it is to be able to get from place to place. And I think maybe we can do a better job of promoting that. So.
Okay, thank you. Chris, did you have anything to add to that question?
Paul hit most of it. The one thing I was going to echo was Brown Cab is a fantastic service, and we have it subsidized by the city. Currently, there are also alternatives that can be looked at. I know ideas have been brought up coming back from the Milwaukee-Madison areas with bike shares and ride shares, and those are other options that I think we can always explore.
Excellent. And for you, the
All
next
right.
question. Are you familiar with the Safe Paths to School program? And can you tell us a little bit about what's happening with that from the city's standpoint?
I'm familiar with the Safe Paths to School program. From a city standpoint, I'm not necessarily privy to all of that information as of yet, but I do think it's a fantastic program in the sense of we have some major thoroughfares that run between our residential neighborhoods and our schools, and any option that we can explore to make that path less resistant is always something that we should be looking into.
Okay. Did you want to add something, Mason?
Yeah, just really quickly, I do talk to Andy Selly, our city engineer, fairly regularly about that. One thing that the city has done with this latest budget that we passed is we did include money to upgrade or update and replace sidewalks and put them into some areas where they're currently lacking, especially around elementary schools where we really do need them. So I believe in the public health, and I think one of the best ways to keep people healthy is if they can walk safely to and from school. So I'm glad we were starting to make some progress there.
Good. Okay, next question for Mason Becker. The South Industrial Park still has not seen the development anticipated when that park was created. What ideas do you have for marketing that part of the city or the community as a whole? And or what do you think is Fort Atkinson's brand?
Well, Fort Atkinson's brand for me is we're a great place to live, work, and play. I think you've used that slogan on occasion. As far as the Clement Business Park, that's one where I feel like, we've all taken a good hard swing at that. It's not been lack of effort. I can tell you the city manager and myself this past year worked very hard on with a local business owner who was considering the park and ultimately decided on other arrangements. But we may need to reevaluate what's going to be in that business park in the future. Maybe while I would certainly love traditional manufacturing to come in there, maybe that's not as realistic in 2019 as it was in 2000 or so when the business park was built. Maybe there could be some options for entertainment building off of the Riverstone establishment and the Fireside, things like that. So I think we need to start thinking outside the box a little bit and consider some new ideas.
Okay, thank you. We've just got about 5 minutes left here, so I'm going to go through the questions if I can. Mr. Kotz, the city is in the process of rewriting its zoning codes. What precipitated this decision, and how will it be different when completed?
Well, I think the zoning codes are something that should always be looked at. I mean, a lot of them are just older, it was just time. Things change. For example, we just looked at the zoning for where the fire department is, and really some minor changes, but just to make it conform. So I don't know that there's anything that major that stepped out and precipitated, other than it was just time to do it, something you do, and also you try and tie it to the comprehensive plan, so you can take a look out where your current vision is for how the changes will be to the city and hopefully the growth of the city, and that your zoning makes sense. And I think that's kind of what we're going through right now.
Okay, thank you. And Chris, how would you work with neighboring townships to balance the preservation of farmland and the growth of business or housing developments?
I think that we're fortunate at a county level that we have a history, a tradition that's heavily steeped in agriculture, and by and large everybody has done their fair share to help preserve farmland, agricultural land, and just natural preserve. I think it's the kind of thing that when we talk about working with another city, it's looking at where the growth makes sense. Infill is always sought after. We want to fill within our city. We don't necessarily want to have to expand. But in that case, what makes sense? Is there an area between Fort and Jefferson that we can expand, we can build more housing, more apartments, whatever it would be, more business area, and it's the least impact to the environment? That's something that we're going to have to continually look at as DNR regulations continue to change and become a little bit more strict, especially with stormwater and the like. So,
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, closing statements. What would you like to say to your populace at large?
All right.
We'll begin with you, Mr. Becker.
Okay, thank you, Kory, and thank you to everybody who, I want to say tuned in, that's not the right word, but who's watching and listening online. This is a great step into the future here. One thing I'm reminded of when I was thinking about this forum, at the first candidate forum I participated in 4 years ago, we were asked, where do you see Fort Atkinson in 5 years? And I said, hopefully the roads will be a lot better. And everybody burst out into laughter. But now we can honestly look around. Brackwell Avenue has finally been fixed and updated. We've resurfaced and seal coated many streets throughout the community. And I think our streets aren't quite as embarrassing as they were maybe 4 years ago. But we just need to keep working together, basically. I don't want to see Fort Atkinson diminish or turn into a bedroom community or something. And I think we just need to keep working together and having that public conversation. So I hope I've earned a vote of confidence for 2 more years, even though this is an unopposed election. And I just want to remind everybody to get out and vote on April 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kotz.
Well, I've enjoyed the past 6 years in the city council, enjoyed serving the residents of Fort Atkinson. I'm pleased that our city council, I think we have a good relationship with the city employees and city departments. I think we work collaboratively together, which I think is refreshing when you look at what's going on the national scene. I think we get along here pretty well in town. I think we we're a good caretaker of our community, and looking forward to continuing to work on those things. And I think we do have some challenges. We have some businesses that have left that we need to try and replace if we can. We want to keep working at the roads, and we want to keep seeing if we can find good housing for our residents. And to me, those are the priorities for the next couple of years.
Thank you, Mr. Kotz. And Mr. Scherer.
well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for moderating, the Fort Atkinson Chamber of Commerce for putting on this candidate forum, Long Walk Media for live casting this on Facebook, and everybody who's taken the time today to watch this feed. Fort Atkinson is a city with a great opportunity. We've developed a sound core in which we can build upon, and I look forward to being one of the leaders that helps guide us into the next phase of Fort Atkinson's long-standing history of excellence. I said this 3 years ago when I ran, and I still believe it to be true, that we as a community share one common goal, and that is the successful growth of Fort Atkinson and the maintaining of its identity. So with that, I look forward to hearing from everybody within the community, and don't forget to vote on April 2nd.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So welcome to the second half of the Fort Atkinson Chamber's Facebook Live Candidate Forum. We're now speaking with our 3 candidates for school board. And as with the first group, you each will have 2 minutes for introductory remarks. The timer will notify you of the time you have remaining, and then I will draw questions from those that have been submitted, and you'll each have a minute to respond to those. So we're going to begin with school board candidate incumbent Mark Chaney. Why are you running for school board?
I am running for school board because I enjoy being on school board as the current president. I found it more rewarding than I had anticipated. I was first kind of cajoled into running for school board, having no idea what I was getting myself into, and I really feel like I've found a place for me to grow. It's not always the most glamorous growth, but it's I really am enjoying it. I'm genuinely enjoying it, so that's why I'm running. I don't have any other specific agenda. I love that contact with the kids, and I love being able to kind of keep an eye on my kids in a way, and kind of keep a finger on the pulse of what they're being exposed to.
Okay, thank you. Kory Knickrehm, please introduce yourself and why you're running for school board.
Sure. My name is Kory Knickrehm. I've lived in Fort Atkinson since 2007 and been an employee of MK Sailor since 2002 here in Fort Atkinson. My journey for me personally started 3 years ago on the senior portfolio interview, and I remember going through those, and that was the first time I've really had much interaction with the district. And I remember after my first or second one, it became pretty clear I didn't have a great understanding of what was going on in the district, and there was a lot of things that was going on that I had no idea about. And I really set my mind at that point that I want to get involved more. There was kids that were struggling. There was kids that utilized a lot of resources provided by the school district. And I wanted to jump in immediately and better understand how I can help out. So kind of fast forward nearly 3 years, and here I am. I've gotten much more contact with the district, begin to understand much more what's going on in the district. And just, it's been a long journey for me to get to this point. By no means do I feel like I have an amazing grasp of the district, but I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on where we're going and where we're heading. And at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we're continually improving. I think my wife's getting sick about hearing about continuous improvement all the time, but I'm passionate about that. I really feel that the district as a whole needs to continue to improve in whatever that may be, whether it's academics, whether it's athletics, you name it, across the board. I just want to make sure that we're continually improving and looking at ways to innovate throughout the district. When I was in the schools, it became pretty apparent to me that there's a lot of innovation happening, and I just want to be a part of all those conversations happening because I find it amazing, the educators and their passion for education. I want to continue to be a part of that process.
Thank you. Adam Paul, please introduce yourself and why you're running for school board.
My name is Adam Paul. I'm running for school board because I think it's a great opportunity and a good idea to be involved with. I personally didn't really know about this opportunity until too much before the deadline, so it wasn't something I had really considered. But I've lived here in Fort for 3 years, but I've worked here for 10 years at IPEC out on the southwest side. My wife, though, is a native, so we decided to move back to Fort 3 years ago when our son Levon was born, and there's a lot of other reasons behind that move, but not insignificant in the decision was the quality of the school district here. So really, I don't have an agenda, just like I don't think anybody else here does. There's no burning issues that we need to solve. We just want to be part of the community, and I think we all want to do our part to support the school district. One of the things that I think we've all done, Mark being involved, is tried to get up to speed as to how the district is doing, meeting with people up and down the ladder there. And I think what I personally saw was a very well-run machine. People are generally happy here. We're doing a good job. I think the steps we're implementing to promote the strategic plan are being well documented, and we're being accountable for things. So, there's a few issues that I find important. I'm guessing we're going to talk about a few of those here in the next few minutes. But I really just hope to use my skills as an engineer to help solve problems, help people, try to get things done, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chaney, we're going to begin with you
Oh,
with the
boy.
first question. And that is, the district recently established a new strategic plan. How do you think this plan will differentiate the Fort Atkinson School District from other options parents have to educate their children?
Interesting that this is the question that I am given, because I had all kinds of personal feelings about the new strategic plan, because it went from a very detailed, what do we do, how do we do it, when do we do it, very detailed strategic plan, to a more goal-oriented, more big picture, larger picture type thing that came from the community and is kind of evolving. So I had a hard time kind of reconciling the disparity between those two, or the differences between those two. What distinguishes Fort from others, I think, that the fact that we're very community based, it's evolving, and it is about spreading a big part of it is what we're all talking about, how we have strong schools. Like, it's one thing to have them, but we also need to let people know. We should tout our things. So that's something that is new to the strategic plan.
Okay. Either of you want to comment on that question?
I will. I think it's important, looking at the strategic vision, and letting community members know of where we're at today and what the success looks like further after that. When I look at it, there's a lot of great things on here. I just need to better understand of at the end of it, what does it look like? How we know that we're successful? I don't know that if I know it looking at the paperwork, but I just need to have further discussions to better understand where that's headed.
Okay. So, follow-up question for
Yeah,
you, Kory.
sure.
According to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction Report Cards Accountability Report, not all schools in Fort Atkinson are meeting or exceeding expectations. What, in your opinion, needs to happen in order for these schools to rise in the rankings?
So that's a pretty loaded question there, but obviously that's our one point of contact with grading the schools, and fair or not fair. That's how we need to proceed, knowing that the state report cards is how we're judged. People coming in the district need to understand they're looking at how did the school fare in the last report card, and they're not getting all the information as far as how it was assembled. They're just looking at the straight numbers there. So while I completely understand that some people maybe think it's a skewed view of our district, perception is reality, certainly in this point. So we need to continue closing those gaps to where we're at today. When I talk to educators, I feel like we have a good plan in place, but we need to ensure that we're going to continue to improve on those, because without that, we're going to see our numbers continue to slide or maybe not improve much.
Okay. Adam, appropriate one for you. Technically trained individuals are very much in demand for Fort Atkinson manufacturers. With college tuition and student debt rising, what are your ideas for linking local graduates with career opportunities in their own backyards?
That's a perfect question, because it's one of the things I truly am passionate about. This is coming from someone who spent the better part of a decade at UW-Madison. I really had a good time there. I value every minute I was there, but I have a lot of friends who went to a four-year college, weren't sure what they were going to do. They got a degree, but they've since not really used that degree. They're struggling with student debt. Back to that question, I think we need to do a better job of exposing students to a variety of career options that may not, maybe it's an apprenticeship right out of high school, maybe it's a tech program. We're actually, where I work, we have welders, we have electricians. We're actually looking to have a better pipeline between the school and our business. So we're trying to work already to help just get kids out and then see other options that they might have. So that's definitely something I think, and everybody in the district I spoke with has a shared goal for that. So I think we're on the right path.
Excellent, thank you. This is a couple of parts of this question here.
Could I follow up
Oh,
on this?
certainly.
We do have several options, youth options being one, and they were all actually recognized at the last board meeting had people been there, they would have recognized that we have something like 90 or 80 or 90 kids who are going from a school kind of assisted career training to a career, and there's a number of those who are already going into the apprenticeship from there. I mean, there are those options.
Okay, thank you.
We do have that.
So, Mark, this question will come back to you. The school district last year spent approximately $320,000 to renovate Luther Elementary and a property on Grove Street to accommodate a private daycare for district employees and to transition the Crossroads Alternative Education Program off-site. What metrics would you use to benchmark the progress of this decision?
That's a extremely nebulous question. Like, how am I supposed to have a benchmark for those? I think that the metric, boy, that is a really hard question to answer, because it's a thing that a decision that I made personally as a board member that was very hard to make. There were a lot of aspects that were brought to light that conflicted personally from what my position as a board member is, which is not a personal, it's a representative of the community. So the metrics that I would think that I would use to determine whether that was a success, if we attract and retain, which was the purpose of the daycare, so we're attract and retain employees, and if we're still meeting the mission with the Crossroads and there's two programs that share that facility, but if those two programs are still meeting the mission, then those are the metrics of mission.
Okay. Follow-up question. The daycare was one way the district hoped to attract and retain high-quality employees in a competitive market. Finding and keeping talent is a challenge for employers throughout Fort Atkinson. What ideas do you have for attracting and retaining high-quality school district employees?
So in my opinion, it's two parts. Is attracting, we just got to get innovative how we're attracting teachers to our district, right? And that doesn't mean the traditional methods, although still important. We need to start understanding where our needs are and go find those people, whether they're coming out of college, whether from other districts that are looking, just a little bit more of a proactive approach. And although I can't speak for exactly everything that's done there, thinking outside the box, and this was a perfect example of let's go in and meet these people. If there's some great educators around the area, or they're maybe from Fort Atkinson or whatever that looks like, we want them to be a part of our community. So that's attracting and retaining. I think it's important that we understand that we appreciate the heck out of them, right? And let them know how valuable they are to our district. Without them, this doesn't happen. Everything that the board discusses, everything that the board does, without quality educators, it really means nothing. So I understand how important that contact is with the teachers, and we just need to appreciate them at a high level.
Okay.
Can I follow up on
Yes,
that?
you may.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The appreciation is there. I think it's always been there. I've always heard that Fort had great schools even before I really knew Fort, going back 20 years. And I think Fort has been a destination for people to come work and live and put their kids into school. And I think we can take for granted that moving forward. The bottom line with the teachers is they're all great. They all have a really hard job. We have great teachers here, and they need to be taken care of. Bottom line, you get what you pay for. We want to make sure that the teachers are compensated fairly and they want to work here. Otherwise, they're going to find a different career or they're going to go to a different district. So I think I don't think anybody's going to argue with that here, but I do think it's probably a topic that will come up in the next few years. Is how do we keep our good teachers here?
Okay, Adam, this question is for you then. School safety continues to be a concern for families and educators nationwide. What precautions should our school district implement to ensure a safe learning environment for staff and students?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and it's unfortunate because the last time I was really in schools was 20 plus years ago, and there's a lot of stuff that's changed since then. We have buzzers and cameras. one of the things I asked every principal I met with about was security, and it's obviously on everybody's mind. Some schools in our district, just by luck, are set up very well compared to others as far as security, just where the way the building's laid out, where the office is, where the doors are. They obviously have an easier time being secure. There's places where we need to improve that. So, I think that's a topic where whether you want to pay for it or not, it's going to happen, and so we need to do it in a constructive way. As far as other infrastructure improvements might go, there might be a way to piggyback some other changes we might want to have, reorganization or building improvements that can kind of go along with the security initiative. But it's something that's going to happen, so we have to make sure we do it in a responsible and cost-effective way.
Thank you. Mr. Chaney,
Yes.
back to you. Given the public debate between academic achievement and student stress, what is your stance on the traditional homework guideline of 10 minutes of homework per grade level? So, for example, second graders should do about 20 minutes of homework, and high school seniors should complete about 2 hours of homework each night.
Wow, I think that's a terrible idea. I think that to judge people's, their ability on how much they are working at home as opposed to in the academic environment, I don't think that that's a really. I'd like to see good data that would back up that those are good advisements. I know I struggled with homework, and I did okay. I know people who didn't do any homework and did well. I know people who worked really, really hard to do as well as I did. So I don't know that the homework guidelines necessarily are going to equate into better performance. I do know that my kids have had years with homework and years without homework. The years without homework were markedly more they were leading what they were learning more themselves. But that year translated into a real love of doing schoolwork, which I think is not necessarily organically fostered when you're told you need to do work at home. So they read on their own.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Mr. Knickrehm. Also appropriate question for you. What is your view on students utilizing their smartphones as part of classroom instruction?
Ironic, huh? Mm-hmm. I was just recently I was reading a study that a teacher kind of laid out. Okay, everybody set their phones there, and the amount of notifications, interactions they received on their smartphone was astonishing. It was extremely high. Although everyone may find this as a surprise, in my opinion, I think it's a complete distraction to what's going on. We have a small amount of the day that we need to focus on education, and if we're going to be on our phones, and although I understand the educational benefit to it, I just don't know if it's great in long periods of time. If it needs to be used as a tool in a short, couple minutes here and there, I'm completely fine with that. But long term, I'm doubtful that it will provide any of much benefit.
Okay. One of the questions that we got, and I want to make sure you each get a chance to answer it because it was asked a lot, is what is your view on the school voucher program? So we'll begin with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit I don't know a ton about that, not having really been involved with schools for quite a while. But from what I do understand, I think school vouchers, they're not going away. I think it's good to have choices in your community if you want to put your kid in a different school. But there are some inequities in how the money removed from the public school district can be used at other schools. So I just think it's important for the community to understand what actually happens when someone leaves the school district. We have to spend certain dollars on certain things for every child that's in our district, and that's not necessarily the case with a voucher school. So I don't think it's something that we shouldn't support or we shouldn't work with, but I do think it's something that the community should learn more about.
Okay. Mr. Chaney, what's your view on the school voucher program?
I guess my view as a board member would be, what does the community think? as a taxpayer, I like the fact that public schools are accountable to me, and that I can see what's going on every month. I can see the budget. I can also advocate for equality or equity, which is something that a voucher school doesn't necessarily have to do. And that's fine. I just don't know that that should be on the taxpayer's dime. But I would, as a board member, again, I would think and act as the community wants me to think and act, unless it's morally reprehensible.
Okay. Mr. Knickrehm.
Yeah, it seems to be a hot button topic as of recently. I think I read that Fort Atkinson, there was about $172,000 that left our budget, and I know we recouped some of those costs. But overall, I will agree there's certain times and places for different schools to happen within the district. But more and more, I learn about the program. I think it takes a lot of dollars that can be used to improving the public education system. That hurts, and it's not taking a dollar and removing a dollar. And it's not like we can, hey, 10% went to a different school. We can just simply reduce costs. It doesn't work that way. And foundationally, when the public school system starts to falter because we have fewer and fewer dollars, that becomes a real concern to everybody living within the district. So it's a touchy subject. I get that, and there's times and places for it, but. At this point, I'm hard to think that Fort Atkinson isn't a place where that becomes okay a lot of times.
Okay. We are now at the point for closing statements here, so we'll start with you, Mr. Paul. What would you like the general public to know about you that we haven't discussed today?
I'm an engineer. It's something that I'm proud of. I think it brings a lot of benefits that I can help bring to the school district. I won't really go into that. I mean, I think I've spoken about it at different events, but I do think that we're lucky here as a community to have 3 solid candidates for this position, or these 2 positions. We all have good intentions. We're all going to work hard for the school district, so I think people can make their choices in confidence. What separates me is some of my career abilities to multitask, maybe, or to help solve some problems. Not that these guys aren't fully capable of doing that. I just want to get the opportunity to experience this and try to give back to the community. There's lots of topics that I think all of us are still passionate about, and there's ways to find, I think, what we think about those online. So I would welcome everybody to get out your computers or your phones and look us up. Contact us if you want to ask questions, and hopefully we'll talk to some of you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chaney.
Well, thank you very much for hosting this new age forum here. First of all, thank you. I'm Mark Chaney, and I would like to continue serving the board, serving the community with my enthusiasm, which I think is pretty obvious. And I feel like I have just now gotten an understanding of how we work as a district and a community, and how the mission fits into that, how those things become kind of a trifecta of a thriving community. And I said this when I ran the first time, that I think it's extremely important to have strong schools. Strong schools mean strong members of a community. It's just very vertical like that for me. So I would like to have another 3 years to work for the community. However, I do agree with I'm sure we're all going to say the same thing. I think we're all strong candidates. My experience and my enthusiasm and my teamwork ability are probably my main strengths.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, Mr. Knickrehm.
Thank you. When people think about me, I think that I want them to correlate invested. I'm invested in the community, whether it's professionally, personally. My kids go to school here. Obviously, their kids go to school here as well. But I work here. I've been here for a number of years. I'm invested in what's going on. I desperately want us to continue to improve. I think where we're sitting right now, we're gonna regardless of what happens, we're gonna see a lot of board turnover. So at this point, I think it's kind of a tipping point for the district, and we're gonna kind of set sail in the way that we believe is the strongest way to go. I believe I'm equipped very well to handle those and ask the important questions that need to be asked. not only as a taxpayer, but a school board member. And I look forward to continuing the process and seeing what happens on April 2nd.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. And thank you to our general public for joining our first Facebook Live Candidate Forum. Please do not forget to vote on April 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you.